We want to welcome everyone again for another one of our live streams as Danny and I continue to have, I think, kind of hard conversations, but I think this is going to be a good conversation, Danny, and a
I do
really
too.
eye-opening conversation. So continuing to say, what does it mean to love our neighbor? What does it mean to love the other? And how does that impact us when it comes to elections, let alone just being the church? So Danny, what do we have in store for us today?
Well, I'm excited about today. We're bringing on two guys that are great friends of mine and whose work has been an inspiration to me. We're going to have with us today Pat Dirksey and Barack Bomani, there's Pat and Barack. We welcome you guys to our studio here today to talk with us about what you're doing. Pat and his wife Julie planted a church, City Church of Compton, back in 2010. They're from Wisconsin. They're a long way displaced to come down to Southern California and land and let him tell a little bit more of that story himself. But they transplanted down to SoCal when he was in seminary and ended up being called by God to plant that church back in 2010. It's a growing multi-ethnic bilingual church, and they're committed to following Jesus and loving each other as a family and seeking the well-being of the city. And I would say, a lot of people put those kind of taglines on their church, and for City Church, they're true. They are family, and they do seek the well-being of the city of Compton, and they are committed to following Jesus. I just appreciate them so much. They also do a lot of helping other church planners and business leaders in urban settings and locally. Pat is what he calls a co-vocational pastor. He runs a catering business, and I just, as an aside, their ribs are to die for. Their barbecue is great. I've had it many, many times, including just recently this summer. And
City Barbecue and Catering.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just have to get that plug in there.
I think we've got a missions trip in place, Danny. I think we need to visit these guys and experience their, it would just make for a better live stream next time.
Pat and Julie have two kids, and they've been in the area there. So, like you said, planted the church in 2010. Now, Barack is the co-executive director and co-creator of a program, an organization called Unearth and Empower Communities. He and his partner, his wife Sarah, create pathways to college, employment, and entrepreneurship for Compton youth through engagement with STEM education and the arts. Barack's been involved in education. He was a founding principal of a charter school in Oakland, where 100% of the African-American and Latino students earned at least one acceptance letter to a four-year college. It's a remarkable achievement. Huge advocate of social emotional learning and what he calls mind, heart, and soul work. I've gotten to know Barack again through the work there and I've seen just his spirit. And the one thing is when you sent me your resume, you left out one of the most important things. He is a fantastic worship leader. And I love being there with in services, worshiping with him and his crew. He is a Bachelor of Arts in English from Dartmouth and a Master of Arts in Educational Leadership and Supervision from San Jose State. And he's married, has two sons. Let's start this way. Each of you kind of give us a brief intro to who you are, your family, whatever you want to share about that, and how you ended up working together, doing the work you're doing. Pat, why don't you lead off, and then Barack, you can jump in.
Yeah, my name is Pat Dirksey, married to my wife, Julie. We have two kids. I got a son, Joshua, who's 13, and my daughter, Anna, is 10. We, I think, originally came to Southern California 20 plus years ago to go to Fuller Seminary, have a Southern California experience, and then head back to the Midwest. And I think we fell in love with the beauty and brokenness of the city. We loved all the complexities of it and how you get to be part of the solution, but you're never fully the answer. And so it's been a gift to be at a neighboring church next door city of Paramount, and worked at a great church called Emmanuel Church. And then it was 14 years ago that we really had a call to begin to plant City Church of Compton. And so it's amazing how fast the time flies by. And I guess there's more of our story we can share. But that's just a little bit about myself and our place. We're just where our church is. We are in a more residential neighborhood, so we're not your traditional church where you'll find a steeple and a big name out front. We are in the neighborhood, and I think our conviction from the beginning was to seek the peace and prosperity of the city. and to move in and feel the same hurt and pain that our neighbors do. We had no sense that we were coming to be the answer, but God was up to something way before we got here, and we simply wanted to join in with what he was already doing. And so it was great to feel like the last 14 years have been rich, and part of knowing Barack is part of that richness. So I'll throw it to him on introducing himself as well.
Everyone, my name is Barack Bomani. My wife is Sarah. We live in Compton. We moved from Fairmount to Compton in 2018. We met each other in 2010, hanging out. She went to Emmanuel Reformed Church, and I heard about this church that was in a garage. And so I got an invitation from my friend Chris Bates, ended up going, loving it. It was a good time, down to earth, good people. And so I started dragging my not yet fiance along with me to that church. We just started hanging out. Eventually we got married, and decided to move to Compton because we had started a nonprofit that was able to bless the city around 2013. And we wanted to continue that work. And we felt like the best way to do that would be to move into the city and actually be with the people who we are creating programs and opportunities for alongside of them. So I'm originally from Oakland, California. Shout out to the Bay, yay area.
Amen. There you go.
Right.
That's
born
right.
in San Francisco, so I rep Frisco as well. Yeah, it's great to be here. This is my guy. We go way back, way back, like Fruit Loops and cereal.
All right.
So, yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to be.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah.
This is going to be a great. Let me ask if I can, people have a certain conception of Compton, and usually it's probably pretty negative. So tell us a little bit more about like the neighborhood where the church is located and what we should know about Compton itself and the nature of the ministry that you're doing there. Either one of you can go, or both.
Either.
Yeah.
Compton is a great city. It's a beautiful city with beautiful people. I think that's what most people don't realize. I know it's got a huge history of being in the media for negative things, of course. And usually it's around, I would say, violence, gang violence, shootings, murders, being unsafe, right? And and I think that's everywhere. So, but for some reason, Compton got that title, whether it was through entertainment, through movies, through music, whatever it is, right? But like most cities, when you come and you become a part of the fabric of the neighborhood, it's just like everybody else. It's just like everywhere else. It may be different cultures, but we're all experiencing. We're having the same type of common situations that are happening to us. A lot of similarities. We're more alike than we are different. And sure, is there poverty in the city? Of course. Is there crime in the city? Yes. Is there success in the city? Yes. Is there business developments going on in the city? Yes. Are there partnerships coming together? Yes. Are races and different languages able to come together in different cultures? Yes. That's also happening, but we don't talk about those things, right?
Right.
And so I think a lot of times we approach things from our own perspective, which sometimes is very limited. And you bring that into the picture of how you view something. So our neighborhood is, I think it's very diverse. It's very giving. A lot of great people on the street, around the corner, in the various businesses. And we love on each other. And I think that's really, really the key to why we're able to do the work that we do, because we're able to see people for who they are. And I'll let Pat, say a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I would say two things just to go along with that. I would say when people ask about Compton, I would say the generosity of the people. I have found that I probably grew up in an area that was great around stewardship. But what I found here in Compton is some of the most generous people I ever came in contact with, that people literally give the shit off your back, right? As it's stated. And so what they have is what's getting to be shared with others. And so I just find the generosity of neighbors is really something to highlight. And then also, I think the resiliency, the grit, the grind, the hustle, making more with less, gets to see like part of the spirit of Compton. And so you'll find people who many times, work multiple jobs. I think that's not unique to Compton, but I think it's very much a story of many people, is hardworking, oftentimes family-centric, of trying to figure out how do we support the family. But the family oftentimes looks beyond just a nuclear family. The family more often represents the block than just your mom, dad, sisters. So a couple things I'd highlight as well. So people work.
I was trying to this morning rehearse when did I first meet you guys. It was the summer of 2017. I moved to LA and got involved at New City Church there. Used to be Water's Edge in New City Church. And we were doing helping out with the arts camp in the summer. And I came down. The first time I ever did that was the summer of 2017. And it's hard to imagine if you can't see yourself to be there on your campus in that neighborhood. And on those afternoons, just see families walking to bring their kids over to the arts camp. There's 100 kids or so from all around there. And just, there's a sense of community there that you don't often experience in many places. It's a neat place. Now, Brock, you and Sarah are involved in educational stuff. We mentioned that's your organization. Can you talk just a little bit about what you actually do there, and how, if any way, does that overlap with the church's ministry?
We're born out of the church, so we're I believe, a part of the church's vision, to be quite honest.
Okay.
And so we had some meetings, a couple of community meetings came together, decided that there were some needs for young people in the neighborhood. And so in addition to the art camp, we started an after school program. And where do we have it? At the church. We've been having programs at the church ever since the inception. So Unearth and Empower Communities, we're a nonprofit organization. We're founded in 2013 at the church. And one of the things that has been awesome for us is we create pathways for our young people. Unearth and Empower means to unearth the goodness or the greatness that is already inside. And we believe that goodness and that greatness is the Spirit of God. We can't say that all the time because people, view that differently. Yeah. But we believe that God is living in each and every person, and we believe that there's some beauty that is waiting to come out. And our job is just to come alongside people and help them with that unearthing. And so that's where our name is from. And our programs, you said particular. So we offer after school programs around literacy, around math literacy, and around reading literacy. We also we got a grant recently, which is through Los Angeles County, where we're going to be able to provide 200 internships for Compton youth over the next 3 years.
Great.
Ages 14 through 24. We also do mural projects throughout the city as well. So we partner with the city and other organizations to help beautify it with art, and we involve the young people and some of the civic leaders so that we can all come together as more of a social project, a community project, as opposed to just doing it individually. And that way young people learn about the history of Compton and are able to talk and come together as a group and create, which we think is the beauty of it. Right? We also do stuff with little ones like 0 to 3, call it Little Creators.
Awesome.
where they're all, the parents come together and they can do sensory activities and explore. And also the parents get an opportunity to get some professional development where they're able to talk with other parents who have young people, which sometimes
Great.
doesn't always happen because of
Yeah.
their schedules. So yeah, those are just some of the projects, some of the
Wonderful.
programs that we provide.
Now, Pat, you and Julie chose to move into the city and raise your children in a place where you would be the racial minority. Now, most white people in our country, we live in white predominant spaces. And I'm curious, what have you learned? You have it over a decade now. You literally had and raised your children in Compton. And what have you learned about the minority experience, about yourself? How has being in that kind of situation grown you, changed you, challenged you? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. I think part of what people don't know is that City Church of Compton we're a bilingual church,
Right.
and so part of knowing that many people in Compton speak Spanish, I had very little Spanish before I moved here, and so part of my experience 15 years ago was Julie and I spent 3 weeks in Costa Rica, trying to learn a little Spanish before we moved into the neighborhood. And I'll say it was no bueno for me. And if you need a translation on that, I can help you with that one. Beyond that, but in that 3-week experience, I think what I intended to do going to Costa Rica was to learn a little Spanish. What I actually got to experience was what it was like for the first time in my life to be a minority in a different setting. And so you had to learn, everything, because everywhere you went was Spanish, and you lived with the host mama, and you would begin to take the bus every day and go to restaurants. And I think for me, it was learning to approach more of life with curiosity. And so part of it has been one of the things we do at City Church is we oftentimes host mission teams from around the country who will come and do beautification projects throughout our city.
Right.
And oftentimes, a talk I'm giving them over and over is approach this week with curiosity. Because everyone does whatever they do because they probably believe it's the best way to do it. And it's not the only way to do it. And so I think part of, being someone who feels like when you're a host in someone else's, home, you learn to take your shoes off and begin to look around and begin to see how things are done. And so I think part of it has felt like coming into Compton, not as if we were going to lead something or drive something forward, but to come first as, knowing that, hey, I want to be a learner. I want to be curious. I want to approach and understand more than give judgments or assumptions on anything that's different than the majority culture that I come from, and and so that I think was probably a few of the things I tell people when they first come, whether you're a guest for a week or whether it's your permanent home, is to approach with much more curiosity and learning along the way.
Yeah. Brock, how about you? You have an interesting and eclectic background. You moved into Compton, and now you have to work with this guy for over a decade. How has that changed or grown you, just being there and working together?
Well, we're both Enneagram 3, so I'll say that we work really. He's a visionary. I'm a visionary. That works out really well. The details we need a little bit of help with. Thank God we have our wives.
Yes.
Thank God for our wives. I've had a great experience. I don't know what to say. It's easy. It's not work. It's who we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have a definition or whatnot. We have a lot of beautiful stories that we could tell if we think about it, about over the years of how we've come to know one another. And I think the most important thing is that I think we honor each other. and we listen to each other's stories and voices. Like, we allow each other to have voice, and all the time that we're having voice, we're not judging one another. And I think that's part of the experience, because there's a freedom to be yourself. There's a freedom to be a Black man in front of a white man. There's a freedom to be a white man in front of a Black man, if you want to bring race into it.
Yeah.
And those different cultures who typically are fighting. If you look at the news and all the ridiculousness that's going on, we decided that we're just going to come together and be with one another and just do life. And it's been a beautiful experience.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Gentlemen, pastoring a church has enough troubles of its own, right? Pastoring a multi-ethnic church and bilingual church has got to have other obstacles and difficulties, and maybe you found a way to do this where those difficulties actually become part of who you are, and they're actually seen as beauty. I don't know. So tell us a little bit about the challenges that you guys face in the community, and even within the church community, as well as reaching out to the local community in terms of being a multi-ethnic church. What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with maybe one story, and then Brock can jump in with a few. I'll start with a positive story. I think it was probably, I don't know, 6 years ago. Again, as Danny mentioned, we're in a residential neighborhood. We look different. We meet in, a garage space, more or less. I'm currently in it right now, so nice backdrop.
Oh, nice.
Here's our space. But I think part of it was we were after the church just got done, so we have a large front yard. So oftentimes we're doing as many things outside as we're doing in our space here. And we had 75, 80 people outside, and there was someone walking by, and as they walked by, they said, "Well, what is this?" Which, again, when you're residential neighborhood, you kind of go like, well, let me explain what it is. People have kind of asked this before, and they're like, well, what is this? Is it like a daycare or something? And because a lot of kids around. And I said, before I could even say, no, this is a church, she says, I've never seen this before. And I was like, yeah, I know, we're not on a main boulevard. And then she says, I've never seen all the colors together. Wow. And so it brought confusion and curiosity, and it was an opportunity to say, hey, we're the church. I think part of what has brought us together is, even when Barack mentions it and why even the two of us are close, is because how I think community is formed is not just deep conversations, but oftentimes going after a similar vision together. And so when we talk about seeking the peace and prosperity of the city, feels like we're together on that. When we started City Catering, and part of our goal was to employ the local youth, that's like, we're together on this. When it was then the pandemic, and it was like, we have more unhoused neighbors who aren't being fed, it's like, we're together on this. And so that's part of the beauty. That's part of the plus. I think similar to many of the marriage fights that I can have is around miscommunication and around not communicating. I think I probably have created hurt at times on things I haven't said, right? And so I think oftentimes, if there are moments of silence, people have to interpret the silence. And so if you didn't say something, then it was like, well, you don't care, or you create whatever story. If it's if they have high faith and trust in you, then maybe they create a good story, and if not, you create a bad story. I think the topics that I know you spent the last two live streams talking about are complex, and I think oftentimes too there has been moments where it's like you got to live in a lot of nuance. People are going to have people are going to come to different opinions and thoughts along the way. And yet, part of what Barack mentioned is like, is it based on a lot of relational capital? And I think it's what allows sometimes conversations to take place in our community, is because that's what people have a lot more of. And I'd say that's probably what we do most of. We have probably most one-on-one table conversations, things in a home would be more of our strength than kind of public declaration, right? Because declaration feels like one person gets to say something.
Exactly.
And everyone feels like I get to, vote in or out on whether I agree with it, versus when you have more conversations of like, hey, tell me what you meant by this. And there could be some more clarity that's brought to it. So yeah, there's definitely hang-ups we experience. And I think communication can definitely be one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's necessary though. You're going to have misunderstandings. You have misunderstandings in your own family. I mean, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to hurt people. People are going to hurt you. And I think how you respond and what you believe have a lot to do with how that relationship is going to move forward. And I think we take a lot of time to be intentional about how we respond to people, and how we honor them in the response. And so even with the misunderstandings and disagreements, we don't all agree at City Church on everything. Let's just be clear about that. And I think that's part of the beauty of it, is the diversity of people being able to come together from different places, different times, different periods in their life, and being able to come say, I'm going to unite. I'm going to unite. We're going to unite, and we're going to do this work, regardless of whatever else might keep us separated. I believe a lot of the communion is the beauty of the work that we do. We come together, we bring people together. And I think the evil one wants to separate, and he wants to divide. So, is there hurt? Is there pain? Definitely. But I think it's necessary to experience that, because you're going to have your birth, you're going to have your death, you're going to have your resurrection. You got to go through the process.
If I can follow up on that a little bit, just, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but can you give us some specifics of some of the major obstacles that you face in working and pastoring and leading in a multi-ethnic community?
I'd say one of them would be when we decided to go from 2 services to 1 service. We were at an English service, and we were still having a Spanish service. And so what we did is we ended up combining them to 1 service, which would mean that people who speak English who don't speak Spanish would have to listen to the Spanish translation, and vice versa.
Wow.
And so what that did was that agitated folks.
Can imagine.
Now you have to be patient. You got.
I bet I know what folks were the most agitated, but I won't. We can leave. Just saying.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
Right. Now you have to actually, this patience that they talk about in the Word of God. I have to actually start utilizing this, honoring this other culture, honoring this other language. Like right now in this space, this is my worship time. What you talking about? I don't want to have to use my, so all that.
It's not our worship time. It's my worship time.
My. It's me. So, some people left. Some people left the church for, and not because they didn't want to be with us. It's because they just needed they needed an experience that was the experience that they wanted. And that's fine. That's fine. But it did challenge us. It did push us to different places where we had to think about what worship looked like differently, and not just from our typical traditional standard lens.
Wow. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we white people are so used to other people our stuff being translated for other people. It's a whole different experience to go the other direction.
Oh, did you think that's what I meant, Danny?
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's no, it's I think one of the things I've enjoyed the most about you guys is I've told you guys this, and I've told a million other people across the years that visiting your church and your community and hanging out with you guys and with your families and your community is therapeutic for me. I would drive the 15 miles from over in El Segundo on the coast in my mostly white town in our self-sufficient, highly, productive, accomplished little neighborhoods, middle and upper middle class, and few wealthy, very few poor people. And I'd drive the 15 miles east over to where you guys were. And what I would sense is this sense of community and interdependence. And one night, remember Pat, Ginger and I came and spent an evening with with your community group, had dinner in your home with your community group. And we just like all these things they're talking about, the sharing, the conversations, that less stuff. There's just so much of that. And why do you think you guys are able to achieve, or I know it's a work in progress. I know it's not perfect, but there's a sense of community there that in so many of the suburban places you don't sense anymore. What do you think is the key to that, the secret to that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would think what we don't talk much about is there's a downside to affluence.
Yeah.
And that is we oftentimes pay for services that we used to depend on the community for.
That's so true.
And so I think, rather than leaning on your, grandma, neighbor, aunt for help when kids are running somewhere, right? We pay for services for childcare, drop-in center, whatever. And I think there gets to feel like one of the benefits, I think, of Compton and why people lean into it is there might not be the same choice as there is in other cities that you can pay for your services. But I think it also provides part of a richness that comes from getting to feel like, hey, we get to give rides to soccer games, and hey, they'll drop kids off here, and I also need your help with this, right? And so we stop looking to pay for all the services that happen, which feels like it's nice to have financial capital. We need financial capital. We'll give a plug later for that. But I think what also takes place is there's this relational component that sometimes out of necessity gets increased because you can't afford to pay for it, but you actually become more rich in the process.
Yeah.
And so I think part of when we talk about, loving each other as family, that goal feels like we don't want to be just a corporate church. That I think part of what Jesus does that's so revolutionary is he creates the greatest extended family that we've ever seen. And I think part of it for us is trying to return to the way of Jesus and do the same thing. And so I think we fight the same things, right? And it's trying to also go like, how do we lean on each other? Because even some of our vehicles, when we talk about community night or missional community, feels like how, if you're trying to do all these things by yourself, it's not going to work. If adding community night to your schedule, it's probably going to make it more busy. But if, missional community is the way your schedule is going to work, because now you have a family that will help you. That feels like more of the game changer. And I think what we're attempting to be at.
I think there's always somebody driving our car or a truck in a kitchen, sharing drop-offs, all that stuff, right? It's just the way of life. It's just how it is. And so you don't have to think about relationship because you are relationship. And Brene Brown has this quote. She says, people are hard to hate close up, so move in. And I think the closer you get to people, the more you want to love them. The more you want to love them. The closer you get, proximity, physical, right? We're just physical, that relational piece, it's real. And so I think it just happens naturally. I mean, that's the God, and that's what Jesus was talking about. If we keeping it real, I mean, he was saying it's hard to hate people. Let's not go around Samaria. Let's go through Samaria.
Right.
You know, it's like, so let's have the difficult, the uncomfortable conversations of what the other is and what their cultures. Let's do that because that's necessary.
Fantastic.
That's so good. I think we talked too about being like front yard people, right? Is like everything tends to be, if you're in our place, everything is front yard. There is no backyard to our property. And I think, you know, the same way Barack was sharing is when we moved in there, I would say the fear level was really high. People didn't know each other. And a large part, I think, what we felt like the church was trying to do through things that, you know, as Sarah and Barack, you know, lead Unearth and Power and art camp, and there's soccer camp, and there's a back to school Sunday, and there's our space up front feels like the local park for people. You know, it's Father Boyle, who, you know, runs Homeboy Industries, the largest gang intervention program in the world. You know, he would say too, it's like our goal is to become kin together. And I think the same way Barack said, it's like, because once you know somebody, you can't demonize someone.
Yeah, that's so true.
Once you start knowing that you have the same hurt and pain and desires as I do, all of a sudden we're looking at our neighbors less suspicious, and they're maybe an advocate of the very same things we want for our kids. And so I think we start finding, you know, we got a block that looks out for many people, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic. And let me actually just make kind of building on that, a commercial note. We have a live stream coming up next Monday night to talk about the 1 year since October 7th and the attack from Hamas on Israel. And part of our story has been getting to know the other side. It's just so easy to fight a war against somebody and to justify it when we demonize the other side. But if you get to know Palestinians, you get to know Israelis, you get to know Muslims, you get to know Jews, it changes the dynamic. And all of a sudden now you realize that the humanity of them. So that's next Monday night. All that can be found on the Determined Truth homepage. Of course, subscribing to the Determined Truth YouTube page, of course, and get those alerts as well. And the next Thursday at the same time as this, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, Danny and I will be having a conversation with Josh Jonas, who works in ministry in Livermore, California, working with prisoners, people coming out of prisons and getting them acclimated and ready to face life outside of prison and getting them so they can be successful and they don't end up getting back incarcerated. So we want to encourage you to those as well. So Barack, if we can have a little bit of the hard conversation for a minute here now. You hosted, Danny was sharing with me that a seminar discussion based on the book White Fragility. And maybe kind of tell us a little bit about what that book's about a little bit. I think Danny and I have both read it as well. It's fantastic. And you apparently the group of people that came to your seminar was mostly white people from a couple churches that had partnered with City Church. What happened? How did that go? Were they uncomfortable? What were the issues raised?
I was there. I was uncomfortable.
Okay. And then so Danny can speak to it as well. But what do you think, you know, that most white people, particularly Christians, need to understand about race and racism?
Man, that's a big
and you
question.
got you got 3 hours to finish this.
So the whole heart behind what happened was this, and I'm pretty sure this was born out of George Floyd. That had just taken place. And so once again, because we share the same vision, we wanted to see people come together. And so we wanted to be able to provide a safe space for people to have difficult conversations or to process things that they may have never processed before. And I think that's really important when you talk about liberation and freedom and bringing people together. And so we provided that space. It was at the church. I think there were over 30 attendees. And I thought it was a beautiful time. We went through In White Supremacy by Layla Saad. It's a great book. Combating Racism, Changing the World. And what she does like really, really well, and I'll probably not do this justice, is she creates an opportunity for white people to own who they are, their experiences, and how they have contributed to racism. And I think it's hard for white people to hear that they contribute to racism. I think that's one of the first things. Is just to let that rest where it is. James Baldwin says, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hates so stubbornly is because they sense when hate is gone, that's it. They sense that once hate is gone, they'll be forced to deal with the pain.
Yeah.
And I believe that racists, and I say racist, I believe that racist white people are avoiding the pain that comes with the reckoning with the wrong that they did and the wrong that they do. They're avoiding that pain. And they live in this cognitive dissonance, if you will, which is like this constant state of discomfort that occurs when a person holds like conflicting views. It's like, I know that slavery is wrong, and I know that beating, raping, subjecting these people to this way of living is not right, but I need this money over here. So I'm going to convince myself that they are not worth, that they're 3/5 of a person. I'm going to convince myself, I'm going to constitutionalize it, and I'm going to avoid the feelings that I am truly having so that I can have the thing that I really want. That's racism. And I believe that there's a lot of pain that white people are experiencing that they cannot release until they have that reckoning. And so that day was a space for people just to share a lot of their experiences with, to be honest, with Black people and their own culture around having these conversations. And it was very uncomfortable for some. It was very liberating for some. It might have been both in between, you know?
I think it was a lot of both.
Yeah. So I believe strongly in that work because everybody has something to heal through. Everybody's got something that they've got to heal through. I know we're talking about race right now, but everybody's got something to heal through. And I think if we approach it from everybody is in some type of pain and it needs to be healed, then we can have a gospel-centric view in terms of how to restore and how to come alongside people regardless of who they are. I mean, I don't even turn on social media anymore. I turn it on and they're talking about Trump. I turn it on, they're talking about Congress. And I'm just like, the words are so horrible. They're evil. They're poison. They're destructive. They're divisive for both people, for both parties. And I'm like, we're modeling this behavior for the whole world to see.
So
And it's sickening. It's sickening. And it's
very
ridiculous.
Good point.
And so I believe that it's time for us to heal. And the only way that we're going to heal is if we come together and do the things that we typically don't do, like listen. Just listen to somebody's story. Right? Don't judge them. Just listen. And I think what was modeled at best for me was watching my parents and my grandparents, who were very close to a lot of the abuse that Black people have been going through in this nation, much closer to it than I was, is watching them change behavior over the course of their lives and become more forgiving. And if it weren't for that pattern of watching them and seeing, like, okay, you're opening me up to more people, to more races, to more experiences, diversity is all around me. Like, I don't have a choice to hurt somebody because now I have all these intimate relationships with people. And watching that growing up was really helpful for me to replicate that.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Do you have, if you don't mind, and again, this is a personal question that you don't need to answer if you don't wish to, but, and we're running a little bit low on time, but just briefly, some story, whether it's your own story or the stories of others, of people of color that white people just don't understand. This is what they deal with. And obviously there can be a lot of things, but just like some particular example of that to help us understand the dynamic.
Mm, mm. I mean, personally, I'm assuming, because there's a lot in the media that we could point to. I think one of the things that's really hard to relay is being a Black male in a racist white society. Is there's nothing like it. It's like you have spiritual, intellectual, relational, financial schizophrenia all the time.
Wow.
Because you're in this constant fit of rage, but yet you're also in this constant fit of trying to move through life and be so that you are productive and thoughtful and loving at the same time, right? And so there's a lot of rage that we experience and that we continue to experience because of the things that we see around us that are systematically placed there, and it looks like nobody sees them but us.
Wow.
We're crazy and everybody else is okay. That's how it's played out. And so we're saying, this is who we are. This is, we're just as everybody else. We're just as important. We're just as beautiful. We're just as giving, forgiving, loving. I got a wife. You got a wife. I got kids. Got kids. I'm living in a house or an apartment. You live in a house, an apartment. We're the same. Like, why are you tripping so hard? And there's these systems that have been placed that are really difficult to move through as a Black person.
Wow.
That really cause a lot of stress, a lot of depression, a lot of hate, a lot of anger. And we're trying to mitigate these feelings, these emotions, and this realness as we move through life, through a system that seems like it doesn't really care based on how it's set up. So I think that's the best way that I can.
We could have a couple hours more unpacking that, but thank you so much.
Yeah. We're going to switch. We are running low on time. Just want to real quick, Pat, can you just give us a very quick summary of what's going on with the lab? Tell people what that is and what your vision for that is for you guys. If you could just give us a real quick update on that.
Yeah, about 2 blocks away from where our church gathers, there's a building that we purchased, which we call the lab. We see it as the intersection of ministry and marketplace. And so we see certain ministry activities that will take place there. Brock and Sarah will use space for an after-school program. We're going to offer some free mental health services.
Wow.
Our church will use some space. There is a class we teach called Starting Right, the Essentials of Running a Small Business. So we want to support local entrepreneurs. That's some of the ministry side. The marketplace is Barack and myself and Barry run city catering and barbecue. So we'll have a commercial kitchen in that spot, along with a coffee shop and a roastery. And we also see one of the pain points in our city is not having places to gather. And so we see the lab ultimately as a place where people will gather, where people will come and be inspired, and where people will come and find healing. And so it's been a far longer journey than we hoped it would be. And I think that's even when we started it. We said we came in to experience the same hurt and pain that our neighbors do. And I would say that we could definitely, I know we're running low on time, but highlight many stories of some of our journey on trying to get businesses up and going here. And one of the hardships of what we'll see when you talk, systemic of what can take place. What are the systems that interfere with, businesses starting. I think we see the entry point is so high to be able to do that. And so that's been part of the challenge that we find, but we are close. We are, I think, a couple months away from finally opening our doors.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, give us an invitation. We're going to come celebrate with you.
Yeah, that was, I've watched that kind of grow because I remember when you first were having this vision, first thinking about purchasing the thing, and just all these years later, I mean, it has been a long, hard process. I applaud your perseverance and patience because I know how long it's been going on there. So guys, just in the last few minutes we have, I want to give each of you an opportunity. If there's anything you want to summarize or say, anything last you wish our audience would know. So if there's any final words that you want to give us, and whoever wants to go first can go first as we kind of close out this time.
Yeah, maybe I just wanted to jump on what Barack was sharing too. He led the workshop so well. I mean, I think people, you can talk about mild, medium, or hot. How spicy do you want to make it? And I think we were moving to the medium to hot area on challenging people. But I think also when people came, and if you're white showing up, you may have felt uncomfortable. But I think what we oftentimes lose sight of is if you grow up Black in America, you feel uncomfortable a lot.
Oh, good point.
You don't hear someone else's story, but they're walking you through your own. It just feels like quite a gift that Barack offered our community because he even stepped further in his being vulnerable and uncomfortable to walk other people through their own journey towards healing. So I think Jemar Tisby there's tons of great resources out there, right? When he talks about how to fight racism, is awareness. We all can find awareness. I mean, you can look at tons of different books on, The Color of Compromise, how to fight racism, Reading While Black. You can keep going on and on. It doesn't take a whole lot of work to find a lot of good resources that are out there. And so to grow in awareness, obviously grow in our relationships that we begin to have. And then I think the hardest part is for us to begin to live into an area of understanding that some of us might have the love of power, which oftentimes has created systems, and we might not feel like we're going to grab it, but we actually like the things that currently exist because it goes to our benefit.
So true.
And I think the challenge for us is to move beyond the love of power to the power of love.
Amen.
And begin to see things differently. That when you begin to, understand someone's story, as Barack mentioned, I think oftentimes the first step is just understanding. And lamenting with someone else is a form of love.
Yeah.
And so to feel like let's hear stories and lament, and first recognize that this is not the way the world should be. And then there's some repentance that's probably in there. And after some repentance, then it feels like reconciliation and moving forward. So I don't want to make any one of those sounds like quick and easy steps.
Right.
But I feel like those are just a few of the things for me, just thinking through on.
Thanks, Pat.
Last word.
Great.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Reconciliation is the key. That is the goal. Communion is the goal. That I really believe that God wants that for his children. It's all to come together. All the stuff on the inside of you is more important than the stuff on the outside of you. I strongly believe that is truth. I read all those books that Pat was reading, but one more I want to add is the Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome.
Oh, wow.
By Dr. Joy DeGruy. Powerful book here. And then the last thing I would say to white people is to give away your spiritual capital, your relational capital, your physical capital, your intellectual capital, and your financial capital. Just
Wow.
give it away. Just
Mm.
give it away. And the best example I've seen of that is my buddy on the screen. He just gives it all away, all the time. And so, giving is the heart of God. So I think it's simple. I think it's profoundly simple and simply profound, but I think it's definitely difficult for people to embrace a spirit of giving and forgiveness. Because in order to give, there's got to be a lot of forgiving too.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so that's what I would say. That's what I would live with.
Wow.
Thank
We will
you, guys.
definitely put some links to your church, and I think you have a website, something, and your ministries. Just make sure, Danny, I get those. We'll put those in the comment box down below. We'll put a reference to the books as well. So, yeah, Danny.
Well, I just want to thank you guys. You guys know how I feel about you guys and what you've been doing, and my little bit of been able to taste that over the last 7+ years has been a life-giving thing for me personally. I believe in what you're doing, and this has been a very helpful conversation for us.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being a part of us today.
Mm-hmm.
I love you guys, and glad you could share this time with us.
Yeah, and come back.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.